Stunts can be meticulously planned and rehearsed, but sometimes they can still go horribly wrong and yet still work in the movie. Like everything in a movie, stunts and choreography involve a great deal of planning to make sure they don't go wrong and that no one gets hurt. Unfortunately, as with just about everything in life, things don't go quite as planned, with stunts going very, very wrong and sometimes causing horrific injuries to cast and crew. But sometimes these failed stunts work out even better than the planned rehearsed stunt, because by having them go wrong, they instantly feel so much more real. In this video, we will take a look at some of the wildest stunts from movies that went very badly wrong but still somehow made the final cut. Get ready to flinch and go, "That didn't look good," as we take a look at some of the greatest stunts gone wrong. The Back to the Future series is one of the most popular franchises of all time, with its light family-friendly fun mixed with crazy time-traveling storylines a hit amongst audiences. While the first installment is set predominantly in the past, the second movie takes place in the future, with a variety of sci-fi technology such as self-tying shoes and hoverboards. But a scene involving the latter nearly had disastrous consequences. The scene in question is when Biff and his crew of cronies chase Marty on hoverboards, with several of them bursting through the window of a clock tower. The stunt seemed fairly simple, with the performers using hidden wires to swing themselves through the windows, which were made out of sugar glass, before their wires were released where they would drop down onto airbags that were hidden out of shot. But that didn't happen for one of the stunt crew, Cheryl Wheeler-Dixon, who missed the window and ended up smashing into a pillar before her wire was released, and she ended up plummeting 20 feet onto the hard concrete instead of the soft airbags. The injury was so severe that Wheeler-Dixon ended up suing the studio and requiring reconstruction surgery. But that didn't stop the studio from using the footage, and that is indeed the take they used, with Wheeler-Dixon's crash into the pillar very much a part of it. Tom Cruise is well known for doing his own stunts, with him having a crazy and ever-escalating catalog for daredevil adventures. But these stunts come with a certain level of risk and can cause significant harm, something which Tom found out all too well while filming Mission Impossible Fallout. In comparison to some of his other stunts in the series, this one was actually rather straightforward, with him leaping from rooftop to rooftop during a chase sequence. While Tom made the leap successfully, jumping across the rooftop and grabbing onto the other building, he didn't quite stick the landing. Tom was supposed to just grab onto the other building and pull himself up, but ended up jamming his foot into the wall and subsequently breaking his ankle. The actor apparently knew pretty quickly that his ankle was broken, but somehow managed to stay in character, and we can see him in the scene pulling himself up and then hobbling away. Tom, unsurprisingly, may not have wanted to do that particular take again, but that hasn't stopped him from doing his own stunts, with him teaming up with NASA and Elon Musk to go to space for an upcoming movie outside of the Mission Impossible series. Ridley Scott's moody sci-fi Blade Runner has gone down as a cult classic and even spawned its own sequel, Blade Runner 2049. But the movie has endured a lot over the years, with the original cut being critically panned and Scott constantly editing and recutting the movie till its, we presume, final version, the final cut. But one scene that has stayed the same throughout is the one that involves the replicant Pris, played by Daryl Hannah, running away from JF Sebastian, and on the surface wasn't a scene that seemingly put the actor in any real danger. But as Hannah ran away, she slipped on the wet concrete caused by the movie's gloomy, rainy setting and smashed her elbow through the window of a van, which apparently wasn't made out of sugar glass. The accident caused Hannah to chip her elbow in 8 places and has left her with a pretty groovy scar. But being a professional, Hannah didn't break character and instead kept filming the scene, and her dedication paid off with the take remaining in the final cut of the movie. People wouldn't have thought it at the time, but Die Hard has gone on to be one of the biggest action movies and arguably Christmas movies of all time, with the movie making a household name out of its star Bruce Willis, as well as introducing us to Alan Rickman's German accent.
I'm going to count to 3.
People found the casting laughable, with audiences not seeing Willis as a tough guy. Oh, how things have changed. But it's this everyday hero premise that makes Die Hard so popular and accessible. He's just a normal guy who turned up at the wrong wrong place at the wrong time. This was reflected in one of his stunts, which in technical terms went wrong, but added to the idea that Willis's character, John McClane, was out of his depth. In one scene, Willis's stunt double was supposed to jump out of an elevator shaft and latch onto a vent, but ended up missing and grabbing the wrong one. Whoops! The filmmakers thought it went perfectly and ended up keeping it as the take used in the movie. Bruce Willis may not have been seen as an action hero at first, but someone who is definitely seen as an action hero is Rambo and Rocky star Sylvester Stallone. Stallone had a spate of action movies in the 80s, with easily one of the most popular being Rambo First Blood, about a troubled veteran who engages in a one-man war against his pursuers. First Blood is packed full of action and violent scenes to make you wince. But one scene was particularly painful for Stallone. As he runs away from his pursuers, Stallone jumps off of a cliff, falling through some trees before coming down hard on some branches. The first take went smoothly enough, but the second take was a different story. As he came down on the branches, he fell a little too hard and ended up breaking one of his ribs, meaning his scream of pain was very much real. Stallone understandably didn't want to do another take, so that is the one that ended up in the movie. By now, you probably know that Leonardo DiCaprio is a very good actor. And while it took him a while to finally get his Oscar, he has definitely given us some impressive and award-worthy performances in the past. One of which is the cretinous Calvin Candy in Quentin Tarantino's blood-filled spaghetti western Django Unchained, with DiCaprio's Candy being a slave owner and the primary antagonist of the movie. DiCaprio seemed to relish playing a villain and got very much into character. But in one scene, he may have gotten a little bit carried away. During the dinner scene with Jamie Foxx's Django and Christoph Waltz's Dr. King Schultz, DiCaprio slams his fist down in dramatic effect, but ends up slamming his hand down on a glass, which shattered into pieces, badly cutting his hand. DiCaprio, hardly flinching, decided to keep going, with Tarantino, who isn't shy about gore, excitedly keeping the camera rolling as DiCaprio's co-stars watched on in shock. The scene was so good that Tarantino unsurprisingly kept it in and shows that even shooting dinner scenes can be dangerous. While The Exorcist may have been horrifying for audiences, it also turns out that it was quite the horror movie for the cast as well. Director William Friedkin reportedly pushed his cast pretty hard, and an example of this was the injury that happened to Ellen Burstin, who played the role of Chris McNeil. Chris is the mother of the possessed Regan McNeil, and in one scene is thrown down hard by the child, which in usual circumstances would have required a stunt double, but because it was a close-up shot meant that she had to do the stunt for real. To make the effect look more aggressive, a wire was used, which was operated by a man behind the camera. After one take, Burstin took a pretty hard fall and complained to Friedkin that she was being pulled too hard, but Friedkin argued that it had to look realistic. Eventually, Friedkin conceded and reportedly asked the operator to not pull as hard, but ended up pulling even harder, smashing Burstin to the floor and badly hurting her, reportedly giving her lasting spinal damage. Friedkin seemed to think that was the most realistic one and kept the take in the movie. Another horrifying incident happened in a comedy movie, The Hangover Part 2. Obviously the second in the series, The Hangover Part 2 mainly follows the same capers as the first movie, with its main cast all returning. In one scene, a car chase sequence breaks out on the streets of Thailand as Ed Helms' Stu dangles out of the window in order to save the monkey. Stunt crew member Scott McLean filled in for Helms, with him drooping his head outside of the car, but the stunt driver missed his cue and swerved too late, causing McLean's head to collide with a truck. He thankfully survived the horrifying ordeal, but was left in a coma for weeks, with doctors believing he may never speak or walk again. Thankfully, though, he continues on his long road to recovery, and the accident remained in the movie. When you think of Sherlock, you probably think of Benedict Cumberbatch or Robert Downey Jr. as the genius sleuth. But the character was subject to parody by the great silent movie comic actor Buster Keaton, who in his movie Sherlock Jr. plays a film projectionist who longs to be a detective. Like Charlie Chaplin, Keaton was a master of physical comedy and would often take part in his own stunts. One such stunt in the movie has Buster drenched by water from a spout, which as stunts go doesn't sound so bad. But the pressure of the water was so strong that Buster hit his head and ended up fracturing his neck. But what is crazier is the fact that he didn't even know anything was wrong. Buster kept having severe headaches, but it wasn't until years later when he went to the doctor for an unrelated matter, he discovered that his neck was indeed fractured. Now that must have been quite the surprise. Come on, you can't mention actors doing their own stunts and not mention martial arts expert Jackie Chan. Jackie is well known for pulling his own stunts throughout his career and has often left himself badly injured in the process. While filming Armor of God, Jackie nearly died as he jumped off of a wall and onto a tree before the branch broke and caused Jackie to smack his head on a rock and fracture his skull. In Who Am I?, Jackie slid down the side of the Willemsworth building and dislocated his shoulder and broke his foot filming a skateboard scene in City Hunter. And he apparently nearly drowned while filming his latest movie, Vanguard. But a stunt injury actually made it into the final cut of the movie, Rumble in the Bronx, when Jackie broke his ankle jumping from a bridge onto a hovercraft. He hid his injury throughout the shooting of the movie by putting a special cover over his cast. Jackie Chan is undoubtedly the king of stunts. So what did you make of these stunts? Which one looked the most painful? Were there any that we missed? Let us know in the comments below and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more interesting content.